Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Fit to Learn webinar, Cold Weather Recess, the Benefits and Tips and Strategies for Year-Long Recess. Here in Chicago, of course, we have very cold winters, and there's a misconception that kids cannot go outside and play when it's cold, and we are here to prove that misconception wrong, or that conception wrong. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and get started. Today, you can expect the webinar to run about an hour. We will be recording the webinar and make it available online. So if you have to leave early, or if you have colleagues who are interested in this topic and aren't able to make the webinar, you can let them know that we're recording it, and then we'll send a link out to everyone who is registered for the recorded version. And then we'll have a brief survey at the end that'll take less than a minute, so if you could please complete that, we'd really appreciate it. By the way, my name is Christy Cox. I'm the Training and Program Manager here at Healthy Schools Campaign, and I'm excited to join everyone in this webinar today. We will have, for the last 10 minutes, we'll have a brief Q&A and answer any questions that you might want to learn more about. On your screen, you'll see a chat feature. And you just simply type your questions through that chat, and we will do our best to answer those questions. Today, joining us, we have Rosa Ramirez-Richter, also with Healthy Schools Campaign, Abby Rose from the Office of Student Health and Wellness at CPS, Principal Flavia Hernandez from McCormick Elementary, and then Allison Slade, former principal at Namaste Charter. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the reins over to Rosa, and she'll get us started. First, we have poll questions we'd like to shoot your way. So give us one moment. We're going to launch a question. First, we'd love to know who you are. So if you could simply just click on the button letting us know if you're a principal, a parent, teacher, if you're a nonprofit advocate, or someone else. We're really interested to know who's participating in our webinar today. Thanks for participating. All right, so Rosa Ramirez-Richter, our first speaker. Rosa works at Healthy Schools Campaign. She's the Senior Manager of Chicago Programs and Policy, and she works with a wide range of school leaders, community members, nonprofits, public agencies, and community organizations. She helps schools create healthy environments where wellness, healthy eating, physical activity, and nutrition education are priorities. She successfully launched the Go for the Gold campaign, a citywide movement for health and learning to curb skyrocketing childhood obesity rates. As a result of this movement, Chicago students are benefiting from healthier school food, increased physical activity, and increased nutrition education. Many of these improvements later became the new standard and have been adopted into the district policy for Chicago Public Schools. She holds a Master's of Science degree in Community Development from the University of California at Davis, and a Bachelor's degree in Public Policy and Sociology from DePaul University. Thanks so much for joining us today, Rosa.
Thanks, Christy. So we're just sharing the poll results right now. So it looks like most of the people on our webinar today are actually parents and other, and we would love to know what that other is. So if you can use the chat function, that would be great. So just to get started, I did want to share just a little overview about what our organization does at Healthy Schools Campaign. We have a really simple philosophy. We believe every child deserves a healthy school, and that concept guides everything that we do. And we know that creating healthier school environments really requires the effort of a lot of individuals and communities alike. And so a lot of our programming and our advocacy is, working with parents, teachers, principals to facilitate these changes at the ground level, but also facilitate changes at the policy level at the district, state, and national levels. In particular, this webinar is part of our professional development program called Fit to Learn, and it's at no cost, and it's available to Chicago educators, both teachers and principals. And the concept is really grounded about how can we create a school day where health and wellness is valued and its impact is really seen in terms of the academic and social and emotional development of children. So I invite you to learn more about this program. But basically, we're here to talk about recess. And, you know, there's a plethora of research that shows that healthy students are better learners. They're more likely to attend school, better able to focus in the class, and ultimately they just perform better academically. And in particular, there's a connection between physical activity and how that increases brain activity, reduces behavioral problems, and has been directly linked to an increase in test scores. And we're not going to go into the specific studies that show that. Again, there's a plethora of that, but at the end we did include a few resources to really learn more about that concept. So in particular, it is recommended for American youth to meet the national recommendation of 60 minutes of physical activity per day. And obviously, our kids, our children are in school the majority of the school day, and so schools are a logical and a place to really work towards that goal of meeting 60 minutes. And recess obviously has a place for that. And so at a glance, you know, again, there's a plethora of research on the benefits of recess, but just giving you a snapshot, you know, given this is a 1-hour webinar, we could just have a webinar on the benefits of recess. But in particular, again, research shows a link between fitness and academics. So the more fit the child, you know, the better academically they're doing. And recess can be the opportunity to really incorporate movement and physical activity during the school day. But in particular, you know, children learn through play, and in particular in an unstructured environment, that shows that when a child is moving, they're using several senses, they're exploring, they're trying different things out, their brain cells are actually changing and learning is taking place. So, you know, again, this is an important time during the school day, and we should definitely defend it. And it has great implications for cognitive understanding through this play experience that kids have. Additionally, there's been several studies that shows the connection between recess and then the ability for students to focus and be more on task during classroom. So having, you know, recess schedules before a really tough class or things like that has been shown to have, you know, just a positive impact on the ability of students to retain information, but also to really just function better in the classroom. Additionally, obviously, recess offers a host of health benefits. You know, kids are moving around. It's helping them meet that 60 minutes of physical activity every day. But it's also, the American Academy of Pediatrics actually released a position paper sharing that recess is a necessary component of a child's development. And in particular, it promotes the habit of an active lifestyle. But it also provides an opportunity to contribute to the body's ability to fight disease, ward off colds, allergies, and they see this as resulting in better school attendance. So recess is you know, just the magic bullet in schools if it's done well. And lastly, you know, recess provides social and emotional development for students. And during play, you know, students are exposed into a different setting where they are the ones in charge and really learning how to negotiate, cooperate, problem solve with their peers, and really be in charge of their own behaviors. There's a new study that just came out from Stanford that talked about how the recess period during the school day, if done well, can really contribute to creating a positive school climate. And there's been a ton of research talking about how the school climate is actually, you know, strongly linked with academics, attendance, you know, and just the overall, you know, less bullying incidents at the school level. So anyways, that's at a glance. I included some useful links. There's ones that we thought were pretty comprehensive to talk about the crucial role of recess in the school and highlighting the benefits. But I do want to invite you to learn more. We had 1-hour webinars throughout, and and stay connected with us. Participate in our Fit to Learn program. Here are some links, and reach out to Christy Cox, who's our training manager here. But we'll leave it at that. I just wanted to give you some framing. But next up, we have Abby Rose, who is a school wellness specialist at the Office of Student Health and Wellness at Chicago Public Schools. And her main areas of focus are helping schools implement comprehensive school physical activity programming. In addition to her work at CPS, Abby is a national trainer for Shape America Let's Move Active Schools Physical Activity Leadership Initiative. And then prior to joining the team at CPS, Abby was one of the founding PE teachers and directors of wellness at the Namaste Charter School. And so we're just so happy to have her here today for her to share her expertise. But before I have her go on, we're going to launch another poll. We just want to learn just a little bit more about why you decided to join us today. So the poll that we're sharing is, what concerns you the most about recess? So we'll just take a few minutes for you all to weigh in. In the meantime, we do want to encourage you that throughout these presentations to use the chat function to ask us questions, or if there's a piece of information that's shared that really sparks your interest and you want more information, just chat us and we can make sure to address that at the end of the webinar. Okay, so we're going to share the results. So it looks like what concerns the group the most is weather and what can we actually do with the students during this time of recess, and adequately preparing our staff or volunteers that facilitate the recess. Okay, thanks so much. So hopefully with Abby can address those concerns. So Abby, it's all yours. Take it away.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Rosa. Next slide. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little snapshot of sort of where we've been and where we are now with recess in terms of Chicago Public Schools. So prior to the 2012-2013 school year, recess was not officially part of the school day since 1978. So while many schools did continue to have recess, it was not mandated, and many schools did cut recess, unfortunately. So we've been building our recess program back up in the past couple of years, and recess was reinstated again in 2012 as a result of the Longer School Day initiative, and definitely as a part of grassroots movement from parents and with the help of Healthy Schools Campaign and other community organizations. Then in 2012, we passed our local school wellness policies, which really codified recess within our policies. Another big sort of leap forward, I feel like, for recess in recent history is last year we were able to implement new weather guidelines, which is quite unique, and also we created a mission and a vision for recess. Next slide. So again, within the wellness policy, it states that recess will promote physical activity and social skills. It is at least 20 minutes in length every day, daily. That means even when it rains, even when it's picture day, even during testing, every day. That it is non-instructional time. We recommend that it's held before lunch, although that is not always possible due to scheduling at all of our elementary schools. Recess, and any physical activity for that matter, may not be withheld as punishment. It should engage all students, and it should be included in students' IEPs or 504 plans when necessary. Next slide. So why a mission and a vision for recess? Well, if you'll notice these days, most things that are important have a mission and a vision. Our district has a mission and vision. Each school at the school level has its own mission and vision. Of course, corporations and things like that you'll find have missions and visions. So we are trying to kind of fight against what Rosa was alluding to, which is the feeling out there among some that recess is not a part of the school day or not as important as other components during the school day, while we know based on the research that this is just not true. So it kind of adds gravitas to bring a mission and a vision to recess. Basically, our mission is twofold: to provide all of our elementary and middle school students with, number one, the opportunity to engage in physical activity, and number two, to develop and practice positive social emotional behavior. So there's really two components to recess. It's the physical activity component as well as the positive socialization. Our vision is, again, that recess is a valued and seamless part of the school day that engages all students and also requires commitment from all staff. Next slide. So what is recess? I kind of ticked off all of the sort of policy requirements, but what is recess really? It is non-instructional, meaning that nobody's getting a test in recess. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be taught by a certified instructor. There's no curriculum per se, but that does not mean that the students are not learning. As Rosa mentioned, they are learning. They're learning those soft skills that are going to help them be successful in the classroom, that transfer into their learning in academic realms. But recess is a non-instructional and mainly social time. Again, that does not mean that there are no goals of recess. We talk about recess as being free time, which it is. It's free time for the students. It's free time for the teachers. However, we want to reframe the idea of recess for staff and students alike to say, yes, it is free time. However, it is free time with a purpose. It is during school. It's part of the school day. Anything you do in school has a purpose. So we want to educate everyone on what are those goals of recess? Why are the kids actually out there? So among the goals of recess, of course, are increasing physical activity time. As Rosa alluded to, we want our kids to be able to accumulate at least 60 minutes of physical activity during a school day. So that 20 minutes of recess becomes really important in there. It is also a goal to learn and practice social skills and developmentally appropriate games for students to play. And of course, having fun, taking a break from instruction. This is truly a life skill that we need more and more. We're in such a wired world and we could work nonstop. It's really important to learn self-care and to take a break and to blow off steam and reduce stress and anxiety. Next slide. So what is recess not? So there is some confusion among some administrators, not the administrators we have on this webinar certainly, but among some, between the difference between physical education and physical activity. Recess is really a place where you're getting physical activity. It is not physical education, where you have an academic class that has a certified instructor with a scope and sequence, a curriculum, assessment, everything you would find in any other sort of core subject. So recess is not that. So you shouldn't see stations or overly structured content in recess. Recess is not separate, again, from the school day. Whatever school-wide rules or expectations or procedures you have in the rest of the school building or during the school day should be present in some way at recess. Again, it should not be chaos. There should be rules and behavior expectations. They might have to be adjusted a little bit due to the different sort of nature of recess, but they should be present and clearly communicated. Recess should also not only be structured activities, games, or fitness. That can certainly be a component, but students should have some level of independence out there and freedom to choose the activities that they are engaged in. The adult supervising should be able to guide those children and encourage them to make healthy choices. And of course, recess is not only the responsibility of those staff members who are charged with being out on the playground with the students. It's really helpful if all of the classroom teachers are at least on board and understand the expectations and can reflect with recess with their students and also go over recess expectations and goals. Next slide. We do have weather guidelines, as I mentioned, which are really exciting. For today, we'll just focus on the cold weather. So 32 degrees and above, with or without wind chill, students should be outside. This is, of course, barring, torrential rain or, other factors that would prevent them from being outside. But for the most part, 32 degrees and above, everybody should be outside. Between 15 and 31, it is actually principal discretion, and I know for a fact Principal Hernandez and Principal Slade definitely encourage students to get out there at like 20 to 25 degrees. And that's what we encourage and recommend in our office, that 20 to 25 degrees be sort of like the magic number for sending students out to play. We're in Chicago, it gets cold, and there's a saying, there's no bad weather, just bad clothes. So we want to make sure that all of our students are coming prepared to go outside. And that becomes part of the school culture, that kids know that they need to be prepared to go outside in cold weather. And this can take some doing in terms of educating the parent community on the whys and more why should we be sending our kids out there and how to best prepare them. It is really a myth, as we have mentioned, that cold weather makes you cold, or gives you a cold, or makes you sick. Actually, germs and viruses make people sick, and those are more found inside. So actually going outside can be very healthy and keep us healthy, and of course, are keeping our kids more active. So that's just a little bit of education piece that you need to educate your parent community to, really calm them down or make sure that they're feeling comfortable about sending students outside. My biggest recommendation I can bring is that indoor recess is typically, in general, not as successful as outdoor recess. So the biggest thing I can urge you to do is limit the amount of days that you spend inside, and really work towards a culture of going outside whenever possible. We've had schools that have reported, even in our coldest, of winters, having less than 10 days of indoor recess, which is really great. Okay, next slide. So here's an example, Poe Classical down on the south side. I love this picture of, they had what they called snow recess, and the kids absolutely loved it. They did a lot of parent communication around this and made sure all the kids had the proper, gear and everything, and were prepared, and parents were aware, and they were very successful with it. Next slide. So everybody's going to have indoor recess at some point. And so it is really important to have a plan for indoor recess. So this plan also needs to be communicated with everyone across the board to make sure there is no confusion about where students are supposed to go, who is supposed to be supervising. All of those things need to be really seamless and in place. I would encourage a practice or a dry run before it gets cold to make sure everybody knows where to go and what to do. Rotating spaces. I'm sure space is a concern for everyone. I think the best case scenario is really one class for one classroom with one supervisor, although that's not always possible. But make sure, if there's one class who's always getting the gymnasium for recess, that it is equitable, and it can be maybe other classes at some point. So ideas for indoor recess. We in CPS have a moving minutes guide. Those are about 25 low organizational small space games that you could play, but there's lots of resources out there in the internet for things like that. Adventure to Fitness or Go Noodle are kind of interactive technology type of platforms that you can use. Just a good old dance party, throwing on the music, making sure it's radio edited, of course, and having the kids dance. Just low organized small space games, infinity bands, beach balls, those kinds of things, fitness or dance videos, team building activities. Those are all really great choices for indoor recess. Next slide. Oh. So another great tip or best practice for recess in general, but this helps with indoor recess as well, is to build in a recess command center. It's basically like a bulletin board. Again, why a bulletin board for recess? Anything worth its salt in a school gets a bulletin board. So again, this lends to the importance of recess, and it's also a great communication device. So it helps people know whether or not recess is indoor or outdoors. You can put all of your goals, your responsibilities, behavior expectations. You can highlight a student of the week or whatever you want to do with that to help really facilitate a positive and seamless recess. Next slide. So we have several school supports out there through our office. We offer recess supervisor trainings monthly, and we try to rotate to different networks. So please reach out if you would like to host a recess supervisor training at your school. We provide guidance, technical assistance for school leaders in structuring and planning recess. We partner with high-quality organizations that provide recess facilitation, and we are always training those vendors and those people who are doing recess in our schools. We make sure to train them in best practices and our policy recommendations. Next slide.
Okay.
That's it. If you have any questions, I will stay tuned till the end. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks so much, Abby, for that comprehensive information. And again, we'll send out the links to some of the resources she mentioned, such as the Moving Minutes Guide. Thanks again. So next on our agenda is Flavia Hernandez. And while I introduce her, I'm going to launch another poll for us. And this one is asking just about a practice at your school. Does your school schedule recess before lunch? So while you answer that, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Flavia. Flavia Hernandez, she is a principal at Cyrus McCormick Elementary, and after years of prior experience in the education sector, she quickly created a successful and collaborative academic learning environment and worked closely with her staff, LSE, parents, and community organizations to provide rich academic programs for her students. Flavia Hernandez is also an advisor on our Fit to Learn Principal Advisory Committee, and she was one of the first schools to bring back recess into the school district. So she has been a great supporter of recess, and she's a great friend of Healthy Schools Campaign, and we're really happy that she's here with us today. I'm going to close the poll and just share the results. And it looks like we have even numbers across that, you know, a third of the group actually do schedule recess before lunch, or actually, yeah, recess before lunch, and then for some of the grades, and then not at all. So Flavia will actually touch a little bit about that in just a second, but take it away, Flavia. Hold on, Flavia. I think we're unmuting you right now. Flavia?
Hello?
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to give you some of what I might say might overlap with some of the comments already made, but I'm going to try to touch upon, you know, some of the concerns that some of you have raised in the poll. I'm going to talk a little bit about the how we started and some of our successes and challenges, and especially during the winter months, and then hopefully give you some tips and strategies in case you're still trying to figure it out. Next slide, please. So we're a regular neighborhood school, but I added the bottom two because I thought it was important, because we do have a dress code and school uniform for the students. The staff has a dress code and the children have school uniform. And the reason I added that as part of our demographics is because we also have Jean Day as a fundraiser, and instead of having the traditional candy and sweet fundraisers. And the other thing is the space issue that, you know, not only are you challenged with, but so am I. So are we, like many other schools. Even though we have a full block, for the size of the building, we have a really old building that probably only held like under 500 students. And as you can see, we're still challenged for space. So we don't have a lot of outdoor space, as well as we don't have the indoor space either. Next slide, please. So I started at McCormick in in 2012. So the trends that I thought were important as a pioneer school is that it was, recess had started even before I arrived at the school. However, I had worked with the school in the past under a different, in a different capacity, so I did know a little bit about McCormick, and they started as early as 2008. However, it wasn't standardized, but teachers were strongly encouraged to take the kids out, usually 15 or 20 minutes. A couple of other things that were really important for the school because it kind of goes hand in hand, but for today's purpose, I'm only going to focus on recess. But healthy eating also started it way back even before the district was promoting healthy eating. And we even got the Gold Award in 2010. Parent engagement was a big one, and I think that's what kind of got us introduced with our Partner Healthy Schools campaign. We've always had a strong parent involvement and committees, and the parent leaders are active and very supportive. We had a wellness team, even though it was not called wellness, even before CPS was requiring it through the wellness policy. And the partnership began basically with Flavia, that many of you probably already know, and one of our parents here at McCormick, and through the meetings, and that's how it got started. And then, of course, trying to meet the wellness policy. Next slide, please. Then I came along around 2012 to McCormick, and right when I was walking in the door, the full school day started, and Common Core and a lot of other things, but also physical education. And we had only one teacher, and we had a challenge. We immediately had a challenge with trying to meet the policy with physical education. So we did invest in 2 teachers, but I brought that up because, again, because of the space challenge. We only have one small gym and a multi-purpose room in one of the other buildings. And of course, I agree with Abby, who said that as long as you can take the children outdoors, whether it's for PE, for a physical activity, obviously it's recommendable, especially if you don't have the space. We increased physical activity recess. We do watch the weather very closely, and we always use the 32-degree mark. But even under 32, if it's sunny and it feels warm and there is no wind chill, we take the kids outside. We have more space and a little bit more flexibility for them to have more freedom for movement. A few things that had to be done and have been done since 2012, and that was a lot of training, professional development. You might think that training takes a lot of funding and being resourceful. It really doesn't. We use the book, the handbook that CPS created with the 10-minute activities, and a lot of it has been, internal. Even our PE teachers have done some of that as well. One thing that we started doing a couple of years ago was through the after-school program. We added programs like yoga classes and Girls on the Run, sports for both boys and girls, a dance class, health and nutrition, and health and movement. And then we were really proud this fall during the Flex Days, we had 10 workshops by teachers, for teachers, and we included the 10-minute physical activities as well as the yoga and meditation. And the other thing that we did too, during that week, we had the 2 physical ed teachers do during transition of activities and from one session to another, because we had 5 days of a lot of information and training, and in order to get the staff to not lose their focus, we have 10 minutes of activities during those transition time, as well as the yoga and meditation, because we wanted them to take some of these the same activities back to their classroom this year. So we thought that was very successful this year. It went really well, and more teachers are now more involved in integrating it within the daily classroom. We also were one of the first schools that started implementing the 30-20-10 which is recess, the daily 30 minutes, and we haven't been as successful to integrate that through all the grades. We have obviously 7 grade levels if we include preschool. But preschool has recess and physical activity integrated in their curriculum anyway. But we haven't been that successful because of the transitioning and scheduling. So we kind of have focused more on the primary students, especially because sometimes to have them out for an hour, it is a little bit longer, so their focus and their attention span probably are closer to the 30 minutes. So for recess, I think you can see the list of successes. It supersedes the challenges, and the challenges are not much different than what most principals have either said on the polls or we have heard. So we have them here as well, and they are challenges that we have faced, in the past as well as in the current school year. But I think I wanted to point out a couple of the successes that we think we have been a result of recess, and that is like the awareness of healthy lives in both the school and the home, and the fact that the teachers are now more involved and more they're integrating more of the physical activity in the classrooms, but also even through writing experiences. So even in the academics, they're integrating those topics. The increased socialization and sportsmanship and team building among students is really important. We're also an SEL exemplary school this year, and so SEL, social emotional learning, is a big area of initiative this year and last year, and so that's very high on our list, and we try to make as many of the connections as possible. We did notice with scheduling the recess before lunch that the children were more hungrier and there was less food that was wasted. And then the relationships, of course, that are developed amongst students, but also with the adults, especially the supervisors, the leaders that are outside. And one of our other successes also is that we don't use recess to discipline children. That sometimes has been a little bit challenging because sometimes teachers want, the administration to hold recess because they know that the children want to go out for recess. But we kind of I always we don't discipline children using recess. On the challenging side, the scheduling is probably one of the biggest things that if we get it right in the very beginning of the year, hopefully we won't have, that much or too many changes that you have to make during the year. The adult and student ratio, I think I heard Abby say 1 to 30 students, and that's of course ideal, but that really doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen in this year, especially this year where we did have, some budget cuts and also some position that we lost, and therefore we are challenged. But everyone who is not in a classroom does supervise recess, including myself. Our biggest accident, of course, are the knees and the elbows that are straight to fake fall because they're running. A lot of times they are running, and so we kind of have to teach them how to run safely. And then the biggest, misconduct, because, I'm being honest, these are things that will happen with, a lot of students involved together in a limited space. So fighting in friendships, I don't want to be your friend. He doesn't want to be my friend. He doesn't want to play with me. Some bullying, et cetera, et cetera. But all of it is taken care of through, school code of conduct and on an individual basis, and of course with our SEL program. Next slide, please. So what do we do in outdoor? With outdoor, I think it's a lot easier, as Abby said and Rosa said. But one of our biggest challenges, especially this year with all of our cutbacks with facilities, is keeping the spaces cleared and clean. And we don't really have a playground. What we have is a space between buildings, and that's the space that we use for for recess when we are outside. Appropriate clothing is a big one. So it doesn't matter if it's in warm weather or winter weather, but I think it does become a little bit more challenging in winter. We have a lot of students that, don't wear coats. Some don't even wear socks. So we kind of have to keep an eye on that, and teachers are pretty vigilant about that. And if we do know that, students are needy, and a lot of times we provide some of the clothing for them as well if we know that there's a need at home. In the warm weather, of course, you have to watch out for the heat. So having those CPS guidelines, I think it was a good idea. We definitely need equipment, and I think our equipment gets more used up during the warmer weather, obviously. So you have to keep replenishing equipment. And I remember the first year when we started our standardized recess, we had a lot of straight knees and elbows, and so I thought I would put that in there. First aid kits and supplies. You need a lot of Band-Aids. We used the little baggies, and we created like little first aid kits. So everyone out there in recess has their little first aid kit for those not the big injuries. Some children don't want to be running around, so we really didn't want to start board games outside, but eventually, based on student voice, we started asking students what they wanted to do. They did call for board games, so we then did add. But the most popular, of course, are the balls, and we use soft balls because we don't have the space, so we don't want rough playing out there. And then the other piece, I think, especially that impacts, I think, during the winter weather months, is making sure that we know the conditions that we have to take for precaution with students, especially with asthma. Some of our students, we do have a lot of students with asthma, and some of them, with the weather in the lower degrees, or if they run a lot, they do have written in their IEPs that they cannot be outside. Next slide, please. So in indoor recess, notice that we also have the same limitations with space. In the winter, it is a little bit more challenging because in our main building, we basically are using just the auditorium, and we have not until this past year did we open up a classroom. So we even had to use hallway space in the modular building in the past. This year, we're now using one classroom for the younger students. So we have kindergarten and first graders in that building. So it is a little bit challenging because of the number of students, but at least we have that extra space. For indoor recess, we found also the beach balls work really well because they're not heavy, and other simple games that, such as time and says, etc. We started doing fitness, buying some fitness videos and stretching and movement in place. And several of our teachers are using the Go Noodle as well. In the winter time, like this past week, we had the challenge of building heat. So students are, were wearing coats. But, facility issues are usually challenging anyway, either in the warm weather or the winter weather. It wasn't until this year that we finally got air conditioning in the main building, so it is challenging regardless. We've also done a lot of like walking in the hallways if we're challenged with space, and power walks. Next slide, please. So I thought about, well, what would principals or administrators or whoever is watching, what would they need in order to make sure that recess was managed effectively? So, like in any program, in any type of activity, you want to establish a plan. And I thought that the most important thing is making sure that communication and training occurs, and it's not just a one-time thing, but it happens, annually. Some things might not be needed, like going over policies. If you don't have new staff, you don't have new parent leaders, you don't need to go over policies, in depth. You can do a quick, reminder or etc. But also include rules and guidelines. I heard that mentioned before, so we have it in our handbooks. Making sure that people know the safety plan. Some of these things are common sense, and roles and responsibilities are really important, especially for the recess supervisors. But a lot of the supervisors are paraprofessionals, and so you also have to train them on how to handle accidents and incidents and also misconduct. Making sure that you communicate through flyers and newsletters. I do a lot of the communication to the parents through calendars and newsletters. We do a lot of workshops. We've done a lot of workshops for both parents as well as the staff because we wanted to create buy-in. And then we also model behavior. So if we're telling the teachers to do something, and we are also trying to model it as well. And if we're telling the parents to do something at home, we're trying to model it in the school as well. I already kind of mentioned scheduling, but I think in terms of scheduling, really has to be strategic. You have to consider the grades and the ages and kind of work around your reading and math blocks. And then your resource schedules, your lunch schedules. Our schedules are back-to-back, lunch and then recess. We do have one grade that we weren't able to work that out, so it's lunch and then recess. And then, of course, meeting your guidelines. But in terms of supervision, again, making sure that you know your students so that if they're not supposed to be out there or they can be out there but not, moving around too much, then the supervisors have to know that. We've been lucky that on and off we've been able to recruit parent volunteers. Sometimes, they're more available in the summertime than in the wintertime. We had a parent patrol as well. Right now it's inactive. We're trying to reactivate it again. But those are two other strategies that I think you could also tap into. Conduct, making sure that everyone knows, again, rules and regulations, and develop behavior expectations. Through our PBIS and SEL programs, we do have, I didn't take a photo of a snapshot of our bulletin boards, but we do have behavior expectations all over the facility. So we have them in the auditorium, we have them in the hallways, we have them, near the restrooms. So we have behaviors for every area of the school, and we make sure that we reinforce that through SEL and through virtues. We teach our students to be respectful and safety and create this self-discipline, and we do that all year long. I didn't share our mission, but we did develop a mission for SEL last year, and in our mission it says that we want students to be responsible and self-disciplined. So that's a big thing when it comes to how they're going to end up behaving during, non-structured times. And the last thing is to make it a priority. I think it was the previous page, but making sure that, you do need a little bit of funding for equipment and supplies, like I mentioned, and you might need some extra staff. So we're lucky to have 2 security persons, but you can also purchase parent workers under the miscellaneous bucket if you're in our district. And also it has to be teamwork. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? As far as teamwork, I put on the very top engaging student voice, because sometimes we don't ask students what they want, but we started asking students what they wanted. I think I lost you. Hello?
We're still here, Flavia. We just had
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. I think I lost it on my end, but as long as you can hear me. But what we learned is through our roundtables with students, I held the roundtables and surveys. They're the ones that shared with us what they wanted to do in terms of some of the videos the board games, and some of the games outside. There does need preparation prior to going to recess, like the teachers have to do some preparation and reinforcing the expectations outside before they walk the students outside, and then the staff who is supervising has to reinforce them outside as well. And then, of course, you need your partnership with the engineer and custodial staff to help out with the cleanliness. I added a few resources that I've used in the past, and then a couple of the pictures. One of them showing that how it's integrated in the classroom, and then our auditorium. It's not that large, and we had about, like, I think we have like about 150 students there. And then we also have had workshops for the parents outside and inside as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Flavia. We really appreciate all of your insight as a principal, and the helpful information you provided, and the resources are perfect for what we're discussing today. So our final presenter is Allison Slade. She's the founder of Namaste. For more than 20 years, Allison has served as a teacher, professional developer, mentor, and curriculum designer in urban and suburban settings. Prior to opening Namaste, she worked as a literacy specialist, providing professional development workshops and in-classroom coaching and mentoring for Chicago Public Schools teachers. She began her career teaching kindergarten in inner-city Houston as a Teach for America Corps member, which sent her on her path to founding Namaste Charter School in 2004. Namaste is a national model for how to integrate health and wellness into daily school life, and we're so excited to have Allison join us today. Before we have her speak, we're going to launch a poll question very quickly. And our question is, who supervises and facilitates recess at your schools? So while we wait for you to answer those questions, we're going to go ahead and turn this over to Allison.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me today. We can see from the poll question that most schools' recess is supervised by teachers with help from others. And you can go to the next slide again. So again, as Christy mentioned, Namaste was founded in 2004 with 90 students. Our oldest students are now seniors in high school, so it's been very fun to see how setting them on this path for a healthy lifestyle comes back to the school, and what they've been able to accomplish in high school is very exciting. We're in our 12th year of operation and have 490 students, and you can sort of see the demographics there. You know, our school was really founded on the idea that kids who are healthy and active perform better in the classroom, sort of the same mission as Healthy Schools campaign. So really the entire school is based on that principle, and the pillars are really reflective of that. Next slide. So here you can see our pillars, which are sort of bucketed in two large domains. One is our core teaching and learning beliefs, and the other one is our Healthy Lifestyles program. And recess obviously falls under the movement pillar of our Healthy Lifestyles program, but obviously encompasses, our program encompasses, you know, recess and much, much more. Next slide. You've heard a lot today about, Rosa talked a little bit about all the research, but just in general, recess, Abby spoke about it as, you know, recess with a purpose, sort of fun for, you know, fun activities with a purpose. The idea that moving during recess is really important as much as possible because it's a time in their day where they can get that kind of more gross motor movement outside or in a larger space. And, you know, these are all different reasons why that movement is really important for students to be able to learn better in school. So I always tell my teachers, even if it takes 10 minutes away from math or social studies, those 10 minutes are much better spent moving so that the rest of the period, the other 50 minutes, are more in control and kids are able to focus on what the instruction is. Next slide. So recess is part of our CSPAP, which is our Comprehensive School Physical Activity Plan. And a CSPAP has 5 different areas. You can see the little arrow, and that really is denoting that recess falls into 2 categories for us: before and after school and during school. But we have movement integrated into all of these different areas of our Comprehensive School Physical Activity Plan, because recess is an area where physical activity occurs. So we have it before and after school, because we actually do offer before school recess. And so when students come, they eat breakfast, and then after breakfast they're able to go to recess, both indoor or outdoor based on the weather. So all of the things that you'll hear me talk about are both for in-school recess and also for before school recess, when children are in the building before the actual school day starts. Next slide. So here are the basics. You know, we are an all-weather school. You heard Abby talk about the guidelines that CPS currently has. For us, this means that we go outside except in instances of heavy rain or like thunderstorms or temperatures or wind chills under 15 degrees. And we have like this nice little red, yellow, green document that we send to parents when they say it's too cold for their kids to go outside, that actually talks about the research behind when it actually is too cold to be outside. And when it's above 15 degrees, you can be outside for moderate portions of the day, which is 30 minutes or less. And we really point to that as our reason for being in an all-weather school. It's interesting that today is the day of the webinar, since when we woke up, you know, looked outside and really saw all different kinds of weather. We also, a lot of the panelists talked about this today too, make sure that students have access to appropriate winter gear. We do coat drives and donations to families. We have gloves, scarves, and hats available, and making sure that kids have appropriate footwear. These come from all different sources every year. You know, one year we had a teacher's parent was in like a knitting club, and the ladies all knit, you know, a bunch of scarves for the school and hats. But we use different means to get these things for students, and there's always some available in the office if necessary for students, so that can't really be an excuse for not going outside. And then, as I mentioned before, we do provide research articles and trainings on cold weather to families, and as Abby talked about before, cold weather actually doesn't cause colds, it kills them. So Flavia did a great job talking about organization, and our school works like slightly different. We have like a little envelope that's like see-through on the outside of every classroom door. We don't like to interrupt instruction with like an announcement that says like it's indoor recess today, and then 10 teachers call and say, what did the announcement say? Did it say indoor or outdoor recess? And so instead we've developed like a protocol where there's a little sign that goes inside this like see-through plastic envelope by 10 a.m. if recess is going to be indoors that day, and our recess coordinator walks around the school and puts those little red signs in so that both the students will notice it as they're switching classes, going to the bathroom, you know, different things like that, and the teacher is able to like really quickly kind of put her head outside the door and see, oh, it's indoor, I don't need to get my kids ready, you know, 5 minutes early for the outside. And we're going to instead spend that 5 minutes reminding ourselves the protocol for indoor recess. As everyone said, we do use our larger community spaces first, gymnasium, cafeteria, multi-purpose spaces, and we use our classrooms as a last resort, both because it's hard for teachers and, you know, there's the most limited space. And for us, recess is always before lunch, and there's also a really important 5-minute passing period between recess sessions. So whether you're going outside or you're going upstairs to the gym or downstairs to the cafeteria, we have learned it's really important that there's, you know, at least 2 to 3 minutes between the start times of lunch periods and the end times of the next period, just so that kids are more calm and in control, and the space is actually available for the students that are coming into the next session. Next slide. A lot of people have talked about different ways to cover recess. We do have one wellness coordinator, and it is her job to organize and manage recess every day, which also includes the morning recess. And then additionally, we have 3 recess monitors that are family members of students that are hired to provide recess supervision. We have 6 actually hired. 3 are in the lunchroom supervising lunch, which happens after recess, and 3 are outside or in the different locations for when there's indoor recess. And then we have a maximum of 2 grade levels that have recess concurrently, so at the same time. So that would be 4 classrooms that need to be covered. So those recess monitors could sort of split up to those 4 classrooms, or they can all be outside. You can see some of the activities that I listed here. Abby did a great job of talking about a lot of things that can happen. Just because there's a ton of snow outside, today is a good example. You know, it's still in the 30s today. It's a perfect day to still go outside. And of course, you have to create rules around the snow. Are they able to play with it or not? How are they able to play with it? What are they able to do with it or not? But just making sure that those rules are transparent and that there's appropriate reinforcement of those rules. We do utilize both our outside space and our inside space in the school for kids to walk, especially our middle schoolers that don't really have an interest in necessarily, you know, running around a ton during recess. If they just want to talk and socialize, that's fine, but they have to be walking while they're doing it. So they are getting that sort of moderate activity and the blood throwing through their body. Next slide. So my contact information is there in terms of contacting me at Namaste. If you have other questions or want to come and see a school in action during recess, you're welcome to come anytime. And thanks so much to the Healthy Schools Campaign for hosting this.
Thanks so much, Allison. We really appreciate your insight into outdoor recess. Okay, so here's the time to ask the questions that may have been burning in your head while we've been going through this webinar. Feel free to chat in your box any questions that might relate to how schools handle recess or what some guidelines are to recess. We've already gotten a few questions, but feel free to go ahead and chat your questions. Rosie, you want to?
Well, the first one, you know, a big popular question was something that you all touched on is how do you address students who come unprepared for, you know, recess that is going to be outside in the cold winter months. I mean, you guys talked about having winter clothing drives and, you know, just making sure there's a stockpile there. But do you have any other suggestions?
Do I talk?
Yeah, sure, Flavia.
Well, we also have a lot, you know, I don't know how, but we always have, especially in the warm weather, a lot of clothing is left behind, and the parents don't label them, so we always put it and never clean. So
okay, that's a great tip.
We try to clean those, and we pass them on, and so we reuse, you know, good clothing. We also, during the report card pickup days too, we might sell them to the parents if they have not been identified, and then we also have a needy student fund.
Okay, great, thanks. And then another question I have for the group is we actually have a parent on this webinar, and they're interested in learning how they can help supervise at their school, and they just want to know, is there a special training they need to attend, or how does that work? And perhaps, Abby, you want to take that question?
Sure. Hi. Yeah, we always encourage volunteers in the school, but you should really go through your own school's process. Each school might have a different you know, process for welcoming volunteers into their space. There are some rules, CPS rules about the amount of time you can spend with children before you need to do a background check and some other kind of red tape sort of things. However, we do offer recess supervisor trainings that are open to anyone. You don't need a CPS login. If you get the CPS weekly alerts, I know there is a parent page to that. I'm not sure if parents are able to see that, but in any case, those trainings are always listed in the weekly alerts, or if you would like to know when and where they are, you can always email myself or the catch-all recess email address is recess@cps.edu. The next one is actually coming up at Pilsen Academy on December 17th, I believe, at 2 o'clock, and there is a registration process you have to go through, but you don't have to be a CPS employee to attend. So if you want to know more about the recess training, it's about 2 hours in length. That kind of expands on everything that we've been talking about here today.
Great, thanks so much, Abby. And all of the other comments that have come in is really just how useful this information has been to them, especially just getting clarity around the cold weather guidelines. And in this one webinar, it was great to see how 2 different schools use it at their discretion, but I just want to be respectful of people's time, and we're a little past 2 o'clock. And I just want to thank all of our presenters for, dedicating their time and their knowledge and expertise to talking about recess today on such a timely day when we had some snowfall this morning. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll follow up with the slides and the resources mentioned at today's webinar. So again, thank you so much, and hope to stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.